There we go. That's better. Didn't know if it was recording or not, but I know now, and it is recording. What is happening, mediocre people YouTube? First off, Glock 30 today. And yes, I am fully licensed to have it concealed, even though it's unconstitutional that I should even have to get a license like that. And that's just a fact. You know, it's the right to bear arms, not the right to bear arms if you have the right license. But whatever. Got to live by the rules, right? Which is fine. So I took down, you know, a lot of the political content on my channel. At least a lot of the stuff over the last 6 months or whatnot. Because I told you guys I was going to. Just because some of it kind of ages and becomes irrelevant. And, you know, the other thing is that I really want to get back towards the music, you know. Don't really want to... You know, if I release a video that's politically subjected, it's because I can't stand it anymore. It's because it's driving me crazy. I have to talk about it, right? And sometimes, you know, speaking to the camera is better than speaking to a person, you know, who either just, at least, you know, the person could fall over and die like that, and they would be just as relevant in the conversation, you know, because people are just misinformed. People are misinformed. They believe they're informed, but unfortunately they're being pounded with, you know, their information comes from the mainstream media, and, you know, they want to believe that they couldn't ever be lied to that badly, you know, that the mainstream media couldn't possibly be lying to them as badly as they are. Let me get this camera a little bit better. Stand on it. You know, and I get it. I understand. I don't want to believe that I'm being lied to as much as I am either. You know, I'd like to not believe it, but unfortunately it's the truth. I mean, the way we're being lied to, and the you know, the level of lies that are being portrayed and parroted by the mainstream media, and then of course regular people that hear it, is really quite incredible. And you know, as I look back on things, you know, even you look at some of the, you know, the movies and whatnot that used to be on wherever, whether it was a big movie at the theater or just something on television. You know, a lot of things are propaganda. Even movies, even some of the movies are propaganda. It's entertainment, right? It's supposed to be entertainment, you know. It's not supposed to have a message in there to indoctrinate you into feeling one way or the other. It's supposed to be entertainment. Unfortunately, the news, you know, the mainstream media, news outlets have become just that, and it's just another form of entertainment. Amazing. Last Sunday, today's Sunday again, and the Lions are playing again, but last Sunday one of our players was injured, broke his leg, and they wouldn't show the injury on television because it was just so bad. You know, it was like, oh, we can't show that on TV, it was so bad. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you know, for sure in the next several hours on that same network will be people being blown up, shot at, stabbed, you know, murdered and everything else on the same network, but we can't watch it. We can't see a football player get injured, break his leg, you know. I mean, come on. It's really unbelievable when you start thinking about how ridiculous some of this stuff has become. crazy, man. Just crazy, right? But I would be, remiss if I did not comment on the hearings going on over on Capitol Hill last week that no one is paying attention to. And these hearings are involving censorship. And it is the Democrat Party that is censoring things. And let me, before you turn my video off, let me just tell you this. Let me start off with this. Robert Kennedy Jr., who has been, running for president, and then he dropped out of the race. He endorsed Trump. Had he just dropped out of the race, maybe what I'm about to tell you wouldn't have happened. But since he endorsed Trump, here's what happened. When Robert Kennedy dropped out of the race, he had plenty of time here in Michigan to have his name removed from the ballot. And he asked that his name be removed from the ballot because he's no longer running for president. He does not want the job. And he had lots of time for Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson to remove him from the ballot. It's not like he did it, and he was late doing it or anything. He had lots of time to do it. He did it well ahead of time of what you would have to do in order to have your name removed. And he put in that request, and she denied him. And then she actually, the Michigan Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, took him to court in order to keep his name on the ballot here in Michigan. Even though he's not running for president, he dropped out of the race. He does not want the job. He does not want to be your president or mine. He has been taken to court by the state of Michigan to force him to keep his name on the ballot. You ask why? Well, because they know it's a vote for Kamala, So he's since gone on to the No Bullshit News Hour, Charlie LaDuff's weekly YouTube podcast, whatever you want to call it. He's since gone on there and started the show by saying, "Do not vote for me. Whatever you do not vote for me." And anyway, he was on Capitol Hill last week talking about how he's been censored even before this happened, okay? When he announced his run for president of the United States of America, he did it and it was live streamed on YouTube, where he had a YouTube channel where he had several, probably hundreds of thousands of followers. And when he was announcing it, it was live streamed on YouTube. Google then deplatformed him. Well, you ask why, and I think that's a really good question. Why, Google? Why would you deplatform this man? Well, at the time, Biden was still in the race, and they knew Robert Kennedy was a threat to Biden. And they did not want Robert Kennedy running because of that. So they deplatformed him. They also deplatformed him on Instagram. Who am I talking about when I say they? Well, it certainly wasn't the company of Google that decided to he's a Democrat, for Christ's sake, right? Why would the company? Because they were told to deplatform him by politicians, in the Democrat Party. If you don't think what I'm saying is true, go watch the hearings. And even if you do think no matter what you think, I suggest everyone goes and watches the hearings that were taking place from the gentleman from Kentucky, who seems to be a really good guy. And they were talking about this, the Democrat Party. If you were watching during this week, if you had been watching these hearings, you would think like I'm thinking. The entire Democrat Party was literally collapsing. I mean, they were being laughed at by everyone. People not in their party, people in their own party. Because of the censorship that they've been a part of, and not only the censorship that they've been a part of, the censorship that they were trying to do at these hearings. While people were speaking, they were interrupting as soon as they started hearing something they didn't want to hear, they would interrupt these people and stop them from speaking. And this is a right to free speech. Now, not long ago, if you go to my community tab, I put a big diatribe in there that you can read, and I suggest you read it. It's not mine. It's Charlie LaDuff's. I quoted it and gave him credit for it on my community post. The whole matter of freedom of speech, so if we're no longer going to have freedom of speech, so who is it that's going to regulate speech? And what speech will be regulated? Now, if you were from a communist country, you would have a better understanding and knowing of what speech might become regulated. I intend to speak with my neighbor that I've talked about several times on this channel, who is Romanian and grew up in communist Romania. And we were having a conversation a few days ago where we were talking about the government, and I said, hey, if you were in your country, would we even be having this conversation? And he said, well, nowadays we would, because it's different now, but back then, no way. You wouldn't even speak about the government. You wouldn't even speak positive about the government, because you never know what someone may accuse you of, and some government official may come take you out of your house and imprison you. That's what it's like living in a country that does not have freedom of speech. Now, you may say, oh, well, that's no big deal. Well, it's a huge deal, because there are lots of countries who do not have the God-given right to free speech. Lots of countries. Right now, today, they don't have that right to free speech. But the fact that free speech is basically being argued with congressional members and senators present over on Capitol Hill is pretty amazing to me. And the fact that there's actually pushback from the Democrat Party should tell you a lot about what this Democrat Party is all about. They always tell you they're the ones that, they're always going to help. We will help you. We will do this. We will do that. Together, we will. And, fuck we. I'm not interested in what we are going to do. I'm more interested in what I'm going to do. And if you'd like to come along, well, then that's cool with me sometimes, But, yeah, it's really disturbing what is taking place. Not starting to take place, it's taking place right now. I mean, we're literally talking about, we aren't, the general public, but people in our government are literally talking about, what should and should not be censored. Now, a lot of this has to do with social media platforms. Again, Robert Kennedy was also deplatformed from Instagram as well. They called him an anti-vaxxer. Robert Kennedy's not an anti-vaxxer, and if you want to watch his testimony, which, by the way, was interrupted over and over and over by Democrats trying to censor him because they did not want him to be able to state his actual viewpoints. They wanted to just keep us in the dark, because there are lots of people in this country who believe that Robert Kennedy is an anti-vaxxer, and he's not. Robert Kennedy has had every vaccine and every single flu vaccine. The only vaccine Robert Kennedy did not have was the COVID vaccine. And the only thing he said about vaccines was that they should be made sure that they are safe 100% all the time. So he was, I think it was the Instagram account was the one that he was deplatformed for being an anti-vaxxer, which he is not an anti-vaxxer. He's also been called an anti-Semite and a racist. Now, I'm telling you, this is not by the Republicans. Don't forget, Robert Kennedy's a Democrat. All these things, he hasn't been called these things by the Republican Party. No one in the Republican Party has said these things about him. The Democrat Party, his own party, who he still subscribes to and believes in today. He believes in the viewpoints of the Democrat Party today. The problem is that the Democrat Party viewpoints that he believes in no longer exist in today's society. I used to believe in the Democrat Party. What happened to listen, back in the 1990s, the Democrat Party was the party that said, fuck you, I won't do what they told me. Fuck you, I won't do what they told me. And now they're telling, fuck you, do as you're told. Shut up and do as you're told. Shut your mouth and vote for us, and everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. You're broke, don't worry about it. Your taxes are climbing and you can't afford groceries, don't worry about it. We will take care of you next time around. But I might be dead next time around. Oh, don't worry, we'll take care of that too. That's where we're at with this Democrat Party, and it's scary shit, man. I mean, I honestly, if Kamala Harris were to be elected, which I just don't understand how she could get elected. She's unelectable, just as much as Robert Kennedy is unelectable for the most part at this point. All because of his voice. That's it. Because people, that's what they hear. They think he's a weak man or a sick man or something. He's not. He's got some rare thing with his voice box or whatever. Anyway, that's another story. But, you know, she's just not electable. And here's a little fact. This is a fact. And this came out the other day. In the state of Michigan, there are 500,000 more voters on the roll than there are people eligible to vote in this state. So let me say it again. In the state of Michigan, when it comes to eligible voters, there are 500,000 more people on the rolls, the voting rolls, than there are eligible to vote in this state. Meaning you've got to be 18 years old, you've got to be a citizen, all that other stuff. That's what you need to be. Whatever you need it is that you need to be eligible to vote in the state of Michigan. Okay? So I'm an eligible voter. There are 500,000 more of me than there are even eligible to vote. So let's break it down a little bit. So let's say, we're just going to pull a number out. We're going to say there's 1 million people who are eligible to vote in the state of Michigan. That would mean there's 1.5 million people who are actually eligible to vote. There's 500,000 people more eligible to vote than there are people eligible, okay? Does it make sense to you? There's an extra 500,000 people on the rolls than there are people eligible to vote. So how does this happen? Okay, so this happens, they go audit it and they find this information out. They go to Michigan's Jocelyn Benson and they say, hey, and they're just ignoring it. The state of Michigan is completely ignoring. That is a fact, okay? That's not an opinion or somebody just came up with that. It is a fact. It came out of Michigan this week. In the state of Michigan today, there are 500,000 people on the voting rolls. There are 500,000 more people on the voting rolls than are eligible to vote in this state. So I'm going to leave you with that. Think about that. And no one's doing anything about it. Till next time, I hope you find some peace out.